Hey y'all, I'm Teresa.
And Mark.
And we're your hosts for
Tell Me That Story,
where we'll tell you true stories of real life happenings.
So stick around, because you never know what you might hear.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're so glad that you're with us today. We have an exciting story to tell you. Let me tell you, this is an exciting one. At least whenever it happened to us, I know our hearts were about beating out of our chest, right?
Yeah, and this is one of those stories that, you know, I said early on that I had some stories I was very reluctant about telling, and I had actually not planned to tell this story. And a friend of ours reached out to me, and he said, you need to tell that story.
Yeah.
Because I had told him, I hadn't told a lot of people about this. But Chuck said, you need to tell that story. And he also told me about a podcast. He said, you need to go on this guy's podcast and tell that story, but we're going to do it here first.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, you know, some people might believe it and some may not.
Yeah, and it's not really about that. I mean, it happened to us. We know that happened. This is what our podcast is about, is real stories of true, you know, life happenings, and
yeah,
it happened to us.
It's 100% fact, and it was something that happened to both of us, not just one of us.
Right, we were together, so it was one night. I don't know, it was like we had went to town one night, and we were on our way back home, and we decided to take a little side road to go home, which if y'all listened to us very much, you know we lived in the deep country.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes drive to the nearest town.
Yeah.
To go where we would go to Walmart and buy groceries and stuff. It was like a 30-minute drive. And we were on our way home, like you said, and there's a road that, it's a cut-through road. It's a shortcut. You can take this road, and it comes out just right down the road from our house. And it knocks about 5 or 6 miles off of the trip. But you never liked the road.
I don't like that road. I've never liked that road. It's always given me a creepy feeling, and I didn't like to go down the road. But this night, Mark decided to go down the road anyway.
Well, this road, if you look at it on a map, it's as straight as an arrow until you get right to the end of it, and it's got a couple little curves, and it runs into the main road. And there's a spot on this road that when you get to this spot, it creeps you out.
It does. It's always creeped me out.
It feels really weird. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. But once you drive past this spot, it's like it goes away.
Yeah.
And
I certainly, after this happened, I certainly never wanted to go back down the road.
Yeah, it's one of those strange places that I don't really understand. The road runs straight. Let's see if I can use my hands to show you. The road runs straight. There's a section of land that runs alongside the road. Then right across, the next section of land is ours. And this section of land that runs across next to the road is very narrow.
Yeah.
So I can sit in my deer stand. I can see people going up and down the road. It's just an eighth of a mile at the most. And when you walk to the back of our property, when you get about even with that spot on this road, it feels creepy back there.
Yeah, there's a spot back there. It does too. Yeah.
And we don't know why, but we were on our way home from town this particular night, and we came over a hill, and I saw some eyes in the road. My headlights hit something in the road, and its eyes glowed. And at that time, we had a big black lab that roamed all over the country.
Yeah, his name was Rocky.
His name was Rocky. He would never stay home. He always roamed. We
got him as an older dog from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was not used to staying home.
Yeah, he was a big American lab, and he just loved to roam. He'd stay home pretty good during the daytime, but at night he was gone.
Right. And we were in the country, so it wasn't something like, you know, you had to have him fenced in.
Right. There wasn't a leash law or anything like it is here where we're at now. But anyway, I saw these eyes in the road, and I saw that it was something black, and I said, well, that must be Rocky.
Yeah.
Well, it just stood in the road, and when we got close, I realized that's
was
not a
Rocky.
dog. It's not a dog. And this is the part that I hate to talk about, because of the way I had ridiculed and laughed at people and made fun of people all my life.
I was one of those that you had actually ridiculed and made fun of, because I had seen something one other time.
So, you know, other parts of the country have Bigfoot. Other parts of the country have this thing or that thing. Mississippi's thing is black panthers.
Yeah.
And I have heard so many people talk about seeing black panthers, and I laughed at them and I made fun of them because I know they don't exist.
Yeah, and my mom and I, we were on our way somewhere one day, and we saw something in a different section, but down the road from our house,
But not far from where we saw this.
not far. And then you had laughed at us.
Yeah.
You know.
So anyway, we saw this thing. I pulled up, and I'm less than 50 feet from it with my headlights on bright, and it's crouched in the road looking at us, and just for a couple of seconds, then it turns and runs to the side of the road and runs up the side of the road.
Yeah.
It was looking for a place to jump into the woods, but they had cut the timber there, and it was really thick.
Yeah.
And I was right behind it. We were watching it run. We were, when it was running, we were maybe 25, 30 feet behind it. We were really close.
Yeah.
This thing was huge. It was probably...
It was way bigger than our Labrador.
It was way bigger than him, and he was probably 100 pounds, yeah.
He was a big dog.
Yeah, this thing was big, and it had an extremely long tail. If you've ever seen a mountain lion, picture a mountain lion and make it black.
Exactly.
That's what we saw.
Exactly.
But here's the problem with that. They don't exist.
Right.
They don't. So after this thing jumped in the woods and was gone.
Or so we've been told.
Right. I stopped the vehicle. And I had a feeling come over me that is hard to describe.
And I can just tell y'all, I was not wanting to stop that vehicle.
The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My blood ran cold. I got a cold feeling all over. And I had a fear come over me that I don't know how to describe it. Look, I grew up in the woods. I've had close calls with rattlesnakes. I had a bobcat try to get in a turkey blind with me one day. And the first year we were up here, I did cabin maintenance, and I've had several close run-ins with black bears.
Right.
All those things were scary, but none of them made me feel like this did.
Right. I remember asking you that. I'm like, did any of those times ever make you feel the way this did? Because it didn't me. Anything I've ever experienced.
And I was in a vehicle, enclosed in a vehicle, and it was already gone, and I had this fear hit me.
Right.
And I thought, wow. And I mean, it's like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, chills went all over me. And I had always said, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, you had it.
And the first thing out of your mouth was, well, do you believe it now?
Do you believe it now?
I said, well, I can't deny it. You know, I just sat there and watched it. I saw it. So the next day, well, that night, I went home and immediately got online and started doing research and confirmed what I already knew. Black panthers are a myth. The only big black cats in the world are black leopards in South America.
Yeah.
And it's a melanistic color phase that is extremely rare even there.
Yeah.
So I went the next day. I went to work, and after work, I went by the Department of Fisheries office, Wildlife and Fisheries office. And I knew all the game wardens there. I knew I'd grown up hunting. They'd been around the hunting camp checking us out. And, you know, they were all a bunch of nice guys.
Yeah.
We knew them all by name.
Well, yeah, they knew you.
And most of them knew us, knew me by name. Anyway, I walked in, and Eli, I won't call his last name. I don't know. He probably wouldn't care. But a guy named Eli was sitting behind the desk, and I walked in, and he said, hey, man, what's going on? And I said, well, I need to tell you what I saw last night. And he kind of laughed, and he said, don't tell me you saw a panther. And I hate for that word to even come out of my mouth.
Oh, no.
Because it feels so weird just to say it. But I kind of dropped my head, and he said, tell me what you saw. So I told him the story, and he said, are you in a hurry? And I said, no, I'm not. He said, I want to get you on a three-way call with the state biologist. Well, the state biologist was Jamie Cummins. I'll say his name, Jamie Cummins. Jamie, if you're listening, love you, buddy.
Remember the call?
Yeah, we knew them all. We knew all those guys. And he got me online with Jamie, and I told him who I was. He said, hey, tell me what you saw, Mark. And I told him, and he said, where did you see this? And I said, it was on Jackson Road. And no, the road's not named after us, but it just happens to be called Jackson Road, and it's right like less than a quarter of a mile from our house. And he said, yeah, I know that road. I said, do you know where the power line crosses the road? And he said, yeah. I said, that's where I saw it. He said, I know exactly where you're talking about. I said, it went in the woods right there at that power pole where the line goes in. He said, yeah, I know exactly where you're talking about. He said, you need to go. Well, first of all, he said, Eli, show him the map.
Yeah.
And Eli pulled a map out from under the counter of the county. And there was 12 red dots on this map in a circle. And they were all in a 10-mile radius.
Yeah.
He said, these are all credible sightings that we have gotten from people, mostly people that we know.
Yeah.
People that grew up in the woods, that have worked in the woods, or have hunted in the woods all their lives. And they came to us and said, I saw something.
Yeah.
And he said, Eli said I think he said his brother-in-law had seen it twice in the same spot, crossing the road by Mars Hill Church at Abent River Bridge. And they all described the same thing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what is it? And they said, we don't know. But we know there's something out there. Now, the Game and Fish Commission will tell you panthers don't exist. And they're right. But they admitted to me, we know there's something out there, but we don't know what it is.
Right.
So I did a lot of research into this. I got kind of deep into it. I wanted to know what I saw and why I saw it. So anyway, Jamie, going back a little bit, Jamie told me, he said, go down there and see if you can find any tracks, or if there's a barbed wire fence, look and see if you can find any hair in a fence. Look for anything. He said, because here's the thing. He said, over the years of my career, he said, we have gotten hundreds of Black Panther sightings, reports. He said, we don't have a hair, we don't have a track, we don't have a picture, we don't have a video, we don't have a drop of, a pile of scat. We don't have anything.
Right. And, during that time, didn't you had so many game cameras out,
I
think.
had 3 or 4 game cameras out on our property in areas where there were high concentrations of deer, where a predator would definitely be hanging out.
Yeah. And I remember that when you would pull the card or whatever, the SD card, the pictures of the deer were always like running.
That particular deer season, what few pictures of deer that I got, they were always running.
Yeah.
But the way these cameras are set up, they take a picture and they have like a 5 or 10 second pause before they'll take another picture. Mm-hmm. So I would get the pictures of the running deer, but I never got a picture of anything that may have been chasing them because of the delay.
Yeah.
So, and I did find some tracks back there, but it had rained on them and washed them out. I don't know, they may have been dog tracks. They were just big round tracks, and that's all I could tell you. But I went back and I looked, and it had been so dry, the ground was so hard, an elephant wouldn't have left a track, and there was no way to find any tracks. Or
after we saw that.
Yeah, and there was no hair. I couldn't find anything. And see, that's the thing. They've had these reports for all these years. They've never had one piece of evidence.
Right.
Everything they've ever had was always, it was a house cat, it was a black dog. I've seen these pictures that people put on Facebook. Oh, I saw a panther, and it's clearly a house cat.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 people comment and want to say, it's a house cat.
Yeah.
It's a house cat, or it's a dog, or it's this, or it's that. There's no definitive proof of a black panther anywhere in the world, period.
Yeah.
I started doing some research into this and looking into it, and I'm just going to tell you, I don't think they're a real flesh and blood creature. I don't think they're a natural animal. Here's what I think. Y'all going to look. I can feel the people rolling their eyes when I'm getting ready to say this. And
you can feel the daggers.
Yeah, and some people may turn it off and walk away and laugh, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Everybody's got their beliefs. This is what I believe. This is my opinion. I cannot prove this. This is my opinion. I believe there's something spiritual.
Yeah.
And I have several reasons I believe that. Number one, the feeling that I got when we saw it.
Yeah, because like you said, I go back to, I saw some of the videos that you've taken when you were doing cabin maintenance, and how the close calls that you had with some of the bear and things like that. And none of those gave you the feeling that this thing did.
No, I have a video of a bear that I could reach out and touch it on the head. It's that close. And it's scary, but it didn't give me that feeling. The only other thing that's ever given me that feeling was when I was in a home that had demonic activity.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the same feeling.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it did me that way too.
Yeah. It's there's nothing else that has ever given me that kind of feeling or that kind of fear.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. It's kind of like, I kind of compare it to if you have a nightmare and you wake up in the middle of your nightmare, that fear that you feel.
Yeah, that cold sweat.
Yeah, that's the kind of feeling it is. So the second reason is because there's never been any evidence. Never, ever been any kind of evidence to prove there are black panthers in Mississippi or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah.
And number three, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of game cameras in the woods in Mississippi at any given moment. Every hunter I know's got at least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And most of the people that I know leave them out year round, so they can pattern their deer and they can see how their deer are growing and, you know, where they're moving and this and that. Somebody would have got a picture of one by now, a definitive picture, other than just a blur that you can't identify.
And then number 4 is all the research shows that doesn't exist.
All the research shows, just like Bigfoot and other things, the research shows that they don't exist.
Yeah.
All we have is people that say, I've seen it. And I guarantee you, if you go to the area where we're from and you gather 100 people and say, how many of you have seen a black panther, I guarantee you at least 25 of them will raise their hand.
Yeah.
Or more.
I believe that.
Or more. I worked in a sporting goods store for like 8 years. I heard all kind of hunting stories. I have heard, I can't even give an estimate on how many people I've heard say they've seen black panthers. But what are they seeing?
I don't know.
Because scientifically they don't exist. Now, they have a what they call a Florida panther, which is actually, it's the same thing as a panther, a mountain lion, a puma, a cougar. They're all the same cat. They're called different names depending on what part of the country. In Florida, they're called panthers. In the mountains, they're called mountain lions. Other parts of the country, they're called cougars. You know, they're the same animal, but they have different names. But none of them are black.
Yeah.
They're all the tan color.
Tan.
There is a gray color phase, a light gray color phase that is extremely rare. But this thing we saw was black.
Jet black.
It was black as night. It was shiny black. I don't know if you've ever seen a black lab right after he's had a bath and dried, and how clean and shiny they are when the sun shines on them. That's the way this thing was.
Right.
And its head looked like it was as big as a milk jug almost.
Absolutely.
It was huge.
It was huge.
This thing was enormous. But I just don't believe they're a natural animal. I'm just going to say it. I think it's demonic.
Yeah.
I really do. Because of the feeling it gave me and because nobody's ever proven they're here and there's no tracks, there's no evidence, and no game camera photos.
Well, I can just tell you, I started praying like crazy when I saw it.
Well, you know, I've had game cameras. I've run game cameras for years. I've had pictures of every creature God put in that part of the world. Everything. Every animal you can imagine that lives in the South, I've had pictures of them.
Yeah.
I ain't never had a picture of a panther.
No.
At all. And there was one less than 1/8 of a mile from where I hunt. And I had cameras in areas where there were high concentrations of deer. You would think I would have got a picture of it.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're flesh and blood creature. I think it's something. And I talked to our pastor's wife about it, and I've talked about her on previous podcasts. She's going to be with the Lord now, but she was very wise, and she said, do you think it could be something spiritual? And that had never even occurred to me before, but when she said that, I thought, well, that would explain a lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot. It's kind of like the deal with Bigfoot. If Bigfoot is something spiritual, it would explain everything. It would answer every question that has ever been asked about it. Here's what I believe. I believe Black Panthers, Bigfoot, Dogman, Alien, I believe all this I believe all this stuff is demonic. I believe it all comes from the same place that angels and demons come from. I believe it comes from the spirit realm. Science calls it another dimension.
Yeah.
But we know it as the spirit realm.
Yes.
And I believe that's what all this stuff is, because there's no definitive proof.
Right. You know, and the Bible says that we war not against flesh and blood.
Right.
And it talks about powers and principalities in the heavenly realms and things like that. And I understand what you're saying.
And plus the fact that every time we drove down that road, we got a creepy feeling, and we just happened to see this thing on that road about that area where we get the creepy feeling.
Yeah. And I think it was another podcast. We were actually talking about going down that road. It was a different time, but we had some minister friends that was in from another state, and we just decided to drive them down the road and didn't say anything to them.
Right.
Do you remember what podcast that was on?
I do not. I don't remember which one it was.
I don't either, but we were talking about that, and we got down the road, and the people that was with us, they actually confirmed, because we were just interested.
Yeah, we hadn't told them anything about this road, and we
No.
got to that spot, and Anita said, "Ooh, man, what goes on down here?"
Yeah, what goes on down this road?
I said, "Oh, you felt it, didn't you?" She said, "Yeah, I felt it. It was strong." And I've never understood that, and it's not just on that road; it carries through all the way to the back of our property.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sound like a sissy when I say this, or a wimp, but that was one part of our property.
Yeah.
If I hunted back there in the evening, I would leave before dark.
Right. There was a trail that kind of went around, and I know there was a time that I was going to try to walk, get some walking in for some exercise, and I'd try to walk the trail. And when I'd get back there, I would run. I would run. I would run. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make that loop anymore.
Yeah, this spot was just really, I don't know what went on there. But for some reason, there's some spirits or something hanging around there. But, we have definitive proof of the most rare animals on the planet.
I think that podcast was probably the one that we were talking about, angels singing.
Angels sing. Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one. So go back and find that, and you can hear.
I think it's called "Is That Angel Singing?"
Is that angel singing?
Yeah, that's another. And as far as I know, this is the last weird story I've got. I've had 2 or 3 weird things happen to me.
I don't think so. You just hadn't been reminded about some stuff.
But I think this is the last one like this that I've got. I can't think of any more. And like I said, I didn't really want to tell this story because it's so out there, and I know people get stomping mad when you tell them panthers aren't real. Oh, I know they're real. I've seen them. Well, I'm not doubting you've seen it, but what did you see?
Right. What did you see?
That's like all these people with Bigfoot. Oh, I've seen it. I know I saw it. I don't doubt that you saw it.
You saw something.
But what did you see?
Yes.
Did you see an 800-pound gorilla, or did you see something spiritual manifesting in physical form?
Yeah.
Because in the Bible, angels manifested in physical form.
Yeah.
Abraham ate with angels.
Yeah.
That's a very physical act to sit down and eat. It didn't say Abraham ate, it said Abraham ate with angels. So it means the angels ate too. Jacob wrestled with an angel.
Right.
That's very physical.
Right.
An angel grabbed Sodom Lot and his wife by the arm and drug them out of Sodom and Gomorrah.
That's right.
That's very physical.
I was going to remind you of that one, yeah.
So spiritual beings can manifest in physical form, and when they do, they are physical.
Right.
They leave footprints. They eat. They sleep. They bleed. They become physical. But nobody's ever had any proof of panthers.
Right.
Not black ones. So
we want to leave it up to you.
That's my panther story.
What do you think about it?
Believe it or not.
I'm interested,
It's kind of like the Ripley's thing. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's 100% fact. We both saw it. I'm just going to leave it right there and let y'all make your mind up and decide whether you believe it or not.
Y'all drop it in the comments and let us know. Have you had a similar story? Because we would love to find out and hear from some other people.
I would love to hear from Cody Reddy.
Cody Reddy.
Because Cody actually lives on that road now. At that time, there was only like 2 houses on that road, and they were on the far other end of it where it runs into that other road. But Cody lives on that road now. I wonder if he's seen or heard anything weird. We need to get Cody on this
podcast one day.
We do. We need to get Cody on there. He was our neighbor, a good friend of ours, and Cody, if you're listening and you've seen or heard anything weird down that area, let me know. I would like to know. And I know Cody's daddy. Cody reached out to me. We told the story about the light at my grandmother's house. And Cody reached out to me and said his father, when he was younger, had some encounters with some strange lights in the area where he lived. I would like to get Cody on to let him tell that story.
Yeah.
Now I know his daddy's a joker, but Cody said he wasn't joking about this. Yeah. He was serious. But that's all we got for today, folks. Thank y'all so much for joining us. It's like I said, as far as I know, this is the last weird story I'll be telling, unless something else weird happens, when you never know.
I got some things that I can remind you of you just hadn't thought about.
Okay, well.
But y'all drop in the comments and let us know if you had anything like that that's taken place. We are interested to know. And we look forward to seeing you again. Y'all join us again. Don't forget to like, comment, share, whatever it is on your platform. And we just appreciate y'all for listening so very much.
And on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Help us move farther up the algorithm so we can reach more people. And God bless y'all, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.